Pope Leo XIV, just days into the job, laying out his vision of the challenges facing the church and the world.
The last several weeks have seen joy, celebration, and hope during this new moment for the church.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Pope Leo XIV made huge changes to the Catholic Church, so big that even Cardinal Tagle was shocked. From how Mass is done to who can take on certain roles in the Church, nothing seems the same anymore.
Throughout the past 4 weeks, all eyes have been on Pope Leo, eager to see what priorities will guide his pontificate. Build bridges and restore unity, both in his divided flock and in a globe torn apart by conflict.
These new rules are shaking things up in ways no one expected. Why did the Pope do this now? What do these changes mean for everyday Catholics, and how will the Church move forward from here? Join us as we break down the 10 surprising reforms that are turning the Catholic Church upside down.
Pope Leo has hit the ground running. He is keeping a hectic pace of religious services, audiences, meetings, consultations, and more.
The Mass in the language of the people. After announcing that Latin Mass would stop being the main form of Mass and instead become an optional rite, while Mass in today's everyday languages would be the norm, the shock was real. For centuries, Latin wasn't just a language in the Church. It was a special, almost sacred way to pray that helped people feel connected worldwide. But Pope Leo wanted something else. He believed God wants us to hear him in our own words, so everyone can truly understand what's being said. His message was simple: let the people understand me again. Now, instead of just Latin, every parish, whether in a small Amazon village or a big city like Manila, must celebrate Mass in the language of the people. The readings, prayers, homily, and even the consecration are all in the local tongue. Previous popes allowed optional translations, but Pope Leo made it required. He noticed a lot of worshippers were just mouthing Latin phrases without truly knowing what they meant. He said this change isn't just about updating the ritual. It's about making the mystery of Christ make sense again for everyone, especially those who felt left out.
The grandest event for our new pope, his inaugural Mass last Sunday, which thousands of clergy, dignitaries, and faithful attended, and millions from around the globe watched on television.
But here's the problem. This move wasn't without its tensions. Traditionalists clung to the Latin Mass as the last thread connecting them to the ancient Church. Some viewed the reform as a betrayal, an undoing of what countless saints had once celebrated. But Pope Leo had a response for them too, gentle but firm. He reminded them that Pentecost itself, the birthday of the Church, began with tongues of fire and languages understood by all. If God spoke to fishermen and foreigners in words they knew, he said, shouldn't we do the same for his children now? With this, he reframed the reform not as an abandonment of history, but a fulfillment of it, a return to the fire, not the form. While many bishops welcomed the change with open arms, calling it a long overdue renewal, others hesitated. Elevating women in leadership. While the first reform gave the faithful language they could hear, this one boldly expanded the leadership table without crossing doctrinal lines. Pope Leo XIV, drawing from his long-standing support of women's contributions in his days as Cardinal Prevost in Peru, has firmly enhanced their roles in Vatican leadership and diocesan decision-making, but stopped short of ordaining women as priests or deacons. He's done more than make speeches.
Pope Leo XIV has had an extremely close and collegial working relationship with her, so I think he's got a great comfort level with the idea of women in positions of power.
Under his direction, women now serve in significant roles across multiple Vatican dicasteries, such as the Dicastery for Bishops, and nearly half of the key advisory boards include women and lay experts. Pope Leo isn't simply listening. He's formally sharing governance, placing women's rights where strategies are made, not just where tasks are executed.
Questions from reporters covering the Synod on Youth have focused on why women taking part in the meeting do not have the right to vote.
It goes beyond representation, as you might think. He is empowering voices that have been influenced by practical ministry. insights that are frequently disregarded in the halls of power. These women offer new viewpoints based on justice, healthcare, education, and the real-life struggles of regular Catholics. Furthermore, this change is calculated, even though it might seem mild in comparison to demands for female deacons. Pope Leo is redefining ordination and reshaping the Church's decision-making process by giving women real influence. This ensures that diversity is not only present, but also plays a crucial role. Empowering the marginalized. Pope Leo has dramatically decentralized ecclesiastical authority, empowering bishops and dioceses to tailor their liturgies, pastoral priorities, and even architectural spaces to reflect the realities of their communities. Think bilingual or trilingual masses that resonate with the people's native tongues, infused with the rhythms, hymns, and cultural motifs that rise from local soil. This isn't deviation, it's conversion. Converting the universal church into a living mosaic of God's people. You may think decentralization sounds like fragmentation, but the Pope frames it as enrichment. In his eyes, unity doesn't require uniformity. One bishop might shepherd a harvest festival alongside the Eucharist in rural Ghana. Another might weave ancient prayers into digital outreach in Seoul, and yet another might integrate environmental stewardship into everyday worship in Venice. This multifaceted approach doesn't diminish Rome. It reflects the multifarious beauty of God's global family. Leo's line is clear. Make oneself small, not to dilute doctrine, but to magnify belonging. And while that decentralization has been inspiring, the shift doesn't stop at language or liturgy. It includes young voices in decision-making. No longer mere observers, youth from diverse nations now participate in diocesan councils and Vatican consultations. From Ghanaian teens to Latina university students, their perspectives no longer echoed, but they speak and are heard. The result? Campaigns and programs that resonate. When young people say, "Listen to us before we walk away," Pope Leo showed he heard. This isn't just symbolic, it's theological. It signals a church that trusts in its own baptized members and welcomes the unexpected edges of where God is moving. From shaping sacred music to influencing social justice priorities, these once silent voices are now inside Rome's corridors, not because they fit the mold, but because they expand it. The result? A living, breathing church where belonging, not mere adherence, is the foundation. This is where it gets even more fascinating. Restoring the Garden of Creation. This reform firmly established Pope Leo XIV's vision of the world's garden by introducing a Green Vatican initiative that replaces symbolic eco-gestures with practical stewardship, even as decentralizing authority restored belonging. Pope Leo made it clear in the first weeks of his rule that the Church needed to move from words to action on climate change. No longer content with solar panels and recycling on paper, this reform mandates that, by 2030, all Vatican buildings be carbon neutral, relying on rooftop solar, electric Vatican vehicles, eliminating plastics, redesigned water systems, and composted food waste. But while environmental commitments sound technical, Pope Leo's approach is pastoral. He's repurposing Vatican gardens and the former Castel Gandolfo estate into living labs for integral ecology, linking sustainability with education, sacred food production, and outreach to the poor. In Italy's Borgo Laudato Si project, for example, Leo walked among greenhouses and farmland, echoing how the Church must kneel to care for creation, not just preach from balconies. He reframes environmental action not as politics, but as loving God's first gift, the earth. You might think Vatican greening would end there, but Pope Leo went further and demanded new liturgical aesthetics aligned with ecological values. Restoration budgets now prioritize eco-design, reclaimed wood altars, solar-powered chapels, vestments dyed by indigenous women, and driftwood crosses, all reminding faithful that beauty shouldn't distance, but draw us closer to to creation. He stripped away papal opulence, trading gold-threaded vestments for simple linen, removing ornate shoes, capes, and jewelry, and choosing a posture of humility and unity with the poor. While this reform echoes Pope Francis's environmental legacy, Leo makes it unavoidable, universal, and urgent. He's not waiting for consensus or applause. He's building a theology of ecology into the Church's DNA. Vatican City will be the world's first fully carbon-neutral sovereign state, fulfilling long-held ambitions. This is not optional. It's creedal. All this while underscoring that caring for creation is as sacred as caring for souls. A curia for the global Church. While the Green Vatican transformed the physical earth, this one reimagines the Church's spiritual infrastructure, especially the Roman Curia, so that Vatican leadership truly reflects the global body of Christ.
We begin with history being made in Vatican City today, the first American Pope ever elected in the history of the Catholic Church.
The Pope arrived in an open-top Popemobile, smiling and waving at the huge crowds who'd lined the streets there.
Pope Leo XIV has repositioned the Secretariat of State as not just a diplomatic hub, but a vibrant bridge between Rome and local churches worldwide. In a bold move, he emphasized that the Pope cannot work alone, praising a secretariat comprised of nearly half laypeople, including over 50 women, an acknowledgement that authority need not all rise from clerical ranks. In practical terms, this isn't tokenism. Lay and female officials, many from Asia, Latin America, Africa, and the Pacific, are now actively involved in curial decision-making, bringing diverse cultural insights to global policies. Pope Leo has signaled that their voices aren't merely heard, they're valued. He's restoring curial functions not as ivory towers, but as listening instruments helping shepherd doctrine, diplomacy, and pastoral care across continents. You might think decentralization stops once the Curia hears, but you'd be underestimating Pope Leo. He's also committed to structural dialogues with women in permanent governance roles. With early signals like supporting Sister Simona Brambilla in a Vatican leadership post and encouraging women's continued presence in decision-making, he's reiterating that governance and synodality involve stewardship shared across genders. However, this next one will blow your mind. Mercy without appointment. This sixth reform goes directly to the core of healing, transforming the sacrament of confession itself, even as empowering local voices influenced authority. Pope Leo XIV has mandated that every parish open its confessional twice a month for a full 48 hours without any appointments, formalities, or pressure. A priest is supposed to wait as a soul doctor rather than a judge. This is a renewal of intimacy, not a program. Before Pope Leo, confessions frequently felt hurried or interrupted by red tape. It's a pure encounter now, a priest, a penitent, and a chance to breathe. He has even given priests retraining in listening, not doctrine. The confessional is not a courtroom, it is a hospital. The goal is to encourage presence rather than protocols. The sacramental essence itself is echoed here. A private confession results in mercy, forgiveness, and a new hope rather than condemnation. People flooded in, despite what you may assume that they would return cautiously. "I forgot how light it feels to be forgiven," sighed an elderly penitent in one parish, while a teenager said, "This is the first time I've spoken and didn't feel smaller." He wept silently, not because he was ashamed, but because he was not alone, according to Cardinal Tagle, who himself knelt anonymously on one of those nights. This is the kind of mercy that remembers those who were once separated. It is ingrained in scripture and tradition, but it is frequently absent in real life. And just when you think confession can't become more radical, remember, this isn't about programs built around bulletins or announcements. It's about constant availability, no schedules and no filters. Twice a month, the door is simply open, an invitation. If the door is never open, how will they know we still wait? That simple posture, waiting, just might be the reform that saves souls. Reimagining sacred space. This reform reinterprets where and how worship takes place, changing sacred spaces to reflect local cultures and ecological awareness, even as confession restored intimacy and mercy. Pope Leo XIV expands upon the Council's idea that liturgical forms can change as long as it serves the interests of the faithful. Nowadays, churches are encouraged to use reclaimed materials, wood, stone, and textiles in their architecture and furnishings, rather than sticking to the austere Roman models. This blends ecological responsibility with local craftsmanship. Think driftwood crosses crafted by refugees, altars from fallen trees, and vestments hand-dyed by indigenous women, all serving as visual reminders of creation's sanctity and the people's identity. At the same time, Pope Leo widens the circle for sacred expression through inculturation, embracing local symbols, music, and art within the liturgy. This echoes Archbishop Piero Marini's work under John Paul II, who integrated Pacific chants, Mexican purification rituals, and other regional forms into Mass. Now, local festivals, dances, and devotional art are validated elements of worship, expressions that resonate with the heart of each community. These aren't just decorative touches, they're authentic liturgical acts that enhance participation and spiritual depth. You might think weaving local culture into the liturgy could risk dilution, but the Vatican emphasizes the organic growth of such adaptations within the Roman Rite, ensuring unity through diversity. But that's not all. In practice, this means a Mass in Kenya might include Swahili chants and Kikuyu drumming alongside the universal prayers. A Mass in Brazil might feature Amazonian iconography crafted by local artisans. The result is worship that speaks from the ground of each community and honors both universal faith and particular identity. And while the aesthetic shift is inspiring, its real purpose lies in deepening spiritual connection. When a church is built from local wood and grown from local expressions, worship feels like home, not a borrowed ritual. It transforms congregations from spectators into participants, fostering a profound sense of belonging and stewardship. This redesign of sacred space makes worship feel like a shared journey, rooted in both earth and spirit, preparing the faithful for the radical communal renewal found in this next reform on the list. Safeguarding the vulnerable. While reinventing worship and space renewed the Church's soul, this reform brings urgent, long-overdue structural accountability. A zero-tolerance policy for abuse and the elevation of victim survivors and lay experts in safeguarding roles within Vatican leadership. This transformation took a powerful step on June 5, 2025, when Pope Leo XIV held his first meeting with the Vatican's Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors, which includes survivors themselves, signaling a determination to overhaul the Church's response to abuse. For too long, insiders note, the Church's processes have hurt survivors, stifled transparency, and sheltered abusers by allowing clergy with credible accusations to remain active while investigations slowly drag on. Survivors and advocates are now calling for permanent removal from ministry, something Leo's stance suggests he's ready to enforce. This reform doesn't stop with statements. It's administrative and structural. Abusers found culpable will no longer be quietly rotated or minimally sanctioned. Under Pope Leo's directive, they will be immediately and irrevocably removed from pastoral duties, pending a full investigation. And those investigations? They now fall under offices that include lay professionals, some of whom have survived abuse, empowering the Church's protective systems with real accountability and empathy. You might assume this would meet resistance, but even Bishop Sean O'Malley, head of the commission, stayed on in support, despite retirement, to help drive genuine, survivor-centered change. This isn't just reform, it's reckoning. It's the promise that vulnerable voices will no longer be sidelined, but placed at the center of institutional judgment and transformation. Ready yourself, because this next one goes deeper still, reweaving the Church's identity into the fabric of people's lives. elevating the next generation, while safeguarding the vulnerable, demanded the Church protect its weakest. This reform centers its future on its youngest. Youth aren't just the Church of tomorrow, they are the Church of today. Pope Leo XIV has made this principle concrete by inviting young people, not as observers, but as active voices, in diocesan councils, Vatican discussions, and liturgical planning. From Ghana to Guatemala to South Korea, young voices now share tables with bishops and theologians. You might think youth consultation is symbolic, but Leo has gone further. He's established permanent youth synodal committees in every diocese and formed a Vatican Youth Council, whose members draft real proposals on faith, justice, technology, and ecology. It's not window dressing, because it's wisdom born of lived experience. In one striking moment, a Ghanaian teenager reportedly told Cardinal Tagle that he finally heard him before he stopped speaking, and Leo heard too. Beyond councils, Pope Leo is transforming education into ministry, echoing St. John Baptist de la Salle, by urging educators to nurture holiness through teaching that is missionary in nature. He's challenged schools and universities to develop environments where spiritual depth and academic excellence flourish together. While that reshapes learning, the broader impact is spiritual integration. Youth feel seen, honored, and empowered, bridging generations and cultures while renewing trust. No longer passive recipients, they're co-creators in a living, evolving church. Get ready, because number 10 will ripple out through real social justice, rights, and service in ways you won't want to miss. Social justice, workers' rights, and AI ethics. While empowering youth to reweave the Church's future, this reform propels its mission into the public square, advancing Catholic social teaching into real-world action and tackling modern threats like economic inequality and AI. Pope Leo XIV chose his name to signal a return to the legacy of Leo XIII and his landmark encyclical Rerum Novarum on the rights and dignity of workers. He's already extended this commitment to emerging challenges, from promoting fair labor practices to calling for AI ethics that safeguard human dignity. As he put it, the Church must respond to another industrial revolution by ensuring technology defends, not diminishes, our shared humanity. His name wasn't chosen randomly. It's a banner for justice. Leo's approach is methodical, not performative. He's assembling expert task forces, combining theologians, ethicists, labor leaders, and computer scientists to craft global edicts on living wages, labor protections, and AI regulation that center on people and not profit. You might think economic justice and AI feel distant from parish life, but Pope Leo is making a real connection. He's encouraging dioceses to launch worker solidarity projects, cooperatives, vocational formation, and AI training theologically grounded. He's urged governments to adopt regulations that protect human agency, especially when algorithms make decisions about human life. And his Vatican will speak at global summits with authority rooted in theology and ethics, not just policy. This reform is a clarion that the Catholic social teaching isn't museum history, it's a moral engine. If a church kneels with the poor, walks with the marginalized, whispers mercy through confession, and builds sacred spaces from soil and soul, it must also work for justice in the economy and wisdom in our technologies. Pope Leo XIV is daring us to believe that holiness and justice are inseparable. Tending the garden isn't enough. We must also replant the world with equity, mercy, and human dignity. What are your thoughts on these reforms? Do you think the Pope is going too far with them? Let us know in the comments section. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to like, share it, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.